commissioners were empowered to voice their opinions on issues that matter to them. As a foster youth, I see the Bill of Rights for the Children and Youth of California as a guide to resources that are not readily available to us. Only 4% of youth in California attend four-year universities. In addition, another disturbing statistic that was released in 2006 by the Select Committee hearing of the California Legislature was that over 70% of all state penitentiary inmates have spent time in the foster care system. I've personally seen many of my former roommates and friends resort to crime as a way of surviving. By investing in our education and mental health, you are helping to prevent further issues that are far more prevalent in the lives of foster youth. While participating in drafting the Bill of Rights for the Children and Youth of San Mateo County, I kept my friends in mind. 2 of my foster youth friends who graduated high school early in hopes of gaining a bachelor's degree quickly to continue on to state college. Now one is homeless and has spent some time in jail, and the other is pregnant and living in a shelter after being beaten by her boyfriend. They have both dropped out of school. This is a future that looms over the heads of many foster youth simply because they lack the basic support necessary to help them succeed. I remember back in October of last year when we first launched the Bill of Rights for the Children and Youth of San Mateo County, and our keynote speaker was Emmett D. Carson. He's the CEO and the president of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation. He talked about the current crisis and how in times of crisis we throw our normal procedures out of the window. Then he proposed a bold suggestion, that we consider the state of our youth a crisis, that we throw out all the normal rules and create innovative solutions to the problems that youth face today. He recommended using the Bill of Rights of California as a guide to create these changes around us. We are at a time when legislators like yourselves are struggling with fewer resources and are forced to reassess priorities. We are asking you to keep us in mind. The Bill of Rights for Children and Youth represents the voices of youth. The state of youth in California is a crisis. The system is failing the very foundation of the state, and we are the future. To create a brighter future, we ask that you adopt the Bill of Rights and use it as a lens for difficult budget decisions before you. Thank you.
Thank you. Very articulate, excellent presentation. And do we have any questions?
Yes. Just want to yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to thank Mr. Hill and the presenters today for bringing this forward. I started as a youth commissioner in the city of Linwood, California, and Robert Henning, the mayor then, established that commission because he felt the same way, carried the same thoughts and beliefs that you articulated today, and so I'm honored to be able to support this and hear your testimony today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Thank you. And I'd like to disclose that I actually started as a youth commissioner for the city of San Jose under Mayor Norman Mineta, and was involved in a lot of the social issues that you're involved in. So congratulations. Keep up the good work at Stanford. And I also want to say that my intern that I had when I was a county supervisor, who was a foster youth in Santa Clara County, this month graduated from Stanford. So we're very much in a celebration mode here. Any other questions, Mr. Logue?
Thank you. Just a quick question. It says it has access to the 21st century education that promotes success in life and future careers and a level of lifelong learning. What is the liability here if that's not achieved to the state, or is there a liability here, or is it just the statement of promise or goal? Okay, so there's no way that we're going to
have to spend money on this.
No, it's not so much the money; it's the interpretation. Another issue is they have freedom from mistreatment, abuse, and neglect, and the question is the definition of those three things.
This will attach to a resolution.
Okay.
I don't know if I understand the question, Mr. Logue.
They have freedom from mistreatment.
Freedom from mistreatment, abuse, and neglect.
What is the I mean, because somebody might say, if I can't watch TV 2 hours a day, I mean, what is the parameters on those definitions, or is there parameters?
Well, I don't know if you want to make a comment about that.
I could certainly give my opinion.
Yeah.
Well, this is meant as a statement of principles. It's not, a law against which definitions. And so certainly the intent behind the Leadership Council when we were doing this and working with our youth is that this is where we want to move our society towards. This is what all children should have. And so we didn't get to the point of any legal definitions of, looking at legal codes. That wasn't the intent behind creating the resolution. It's a spirit. It's a sense that if you sign on to this, that when you make policy decisions, you'll keep children in mind along these specific parameters.
And it also wouldn't infringe upon the parents' right to teach the children their own religious beliefs or as such. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Assembly member?
No, I just respectfully ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, and excellent resolution. I don't have any other questions, so we please call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Berryhill? Hall?
Aye.
Hall, aye. Logue? Not voting. Portantino?
Aye.
Portantino, aye. Swanson?
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. That bill's out.
Bill's out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members.
Mr. DeSone is here, and he's next. And we have two bills by Mr. DeSone. And Senator, would you like to start with SB 516? You want to start with SB 516?
Yes, if I don't hurt myself. Thank you,
Okay.
Chairman Bell. It's nice to be back where I spent so many happy moments with you the last 2 years. And let me just say, this is a good follow-up to the previous bill. Tom Torlakson and I, many years ago, when we were both on the Contra Costa County Board of Supervisors, basically copied San Mateo and created our County Youth Commission, which has been in effect for, must be 20 years, and the Peninsula Partnership for all their great work, and deliberately tried to do what they did, amongst other things, but to bring people like the witness today who are from disadvantaged communities so they can both have the experience but also share their unique perspective in life. So 516 follows in that tradition, and it does two things. First, it creates the California Youth Legislature, which would be a 120-member body of young people aged 14 to 18, selected by members of the State Assembly and the State Senate from their respective legislative districts. It is modeled, in this instance, after the California Seniors Legislature. It would be housed under the Joint Rules Committee, would have an administrator in the LOB. And then the uniqueness of it is working with Speaker Bass last year in a bill I carried, we continued language that would foster having, no pun intended, but would encourage all of us to choose people with diverse backgrounds, both to reflect the makeup of California, but also, again, to do what the San Mateo Youth Commission does in getting disadvantaged folks involved in the civic process. They would serve 2-year terms. So prospectively, somebody could serve for 4 years in the California Youth Legislature. And then the second part of it, it creates a funding source by creating the California Fund for Youth, which would be one of the 15 items on your income tax return so that people could check off that they would want to donate $2 to this fund. When the Joint Rules Committee decides that there's enough funding, over $250,000, to implement the legislature, then it would follow the same pattern as the senior legislature. We will have some discussion from the YMCA. We had a meeting with myself with their lobbyist and their director yesterday about their interest in somehow partnering with us. So we're going to continue to have that discussion. I have asked them to provide some information on what Oklahoma recently did to help fund their program. Their program and this program, I feel like both of them want to do the same thing, which is encourage young people to be involved in government and learn more about California government. We do think there are some differences, but we're anxious to talk with them to see if we can work something out collectively. There are 9 states that have a youth legislature or a form of a youth legislature, also have YMCA that work separately. But as I just indicated, it seems as if Oklahoma has taken a route where they work together. And there's multiple other states that have either youth commission or a youth legislature. So with that, I will turn it over to one of our co-sponsors and be happy to answer any questions.
witness, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Heather Deering. I'm the Executive Director of the California Coalition for Youth, and we're co-sponsoring this bill. Our organization is a 30-year-old grassroots advocacy organization that represents nearly 100 other organizations throughout the state that work with disconnected and disadvantaged youth throughout the state. We also operate the state-funded California Youth Crisis Line. And our organization is one that works with and for youth in many ways. We have youth at every level of our organization, at volunteer level, at the staff level, and on our board of directors. We utilize a positive youth development approach that suggests that helping young people to achieve their full potential is the best way to prevent them in engaging in risky behaviors. When community members and policymakers harness the energy of and the initiative of youth, good things happen. Youth believe they can be successful instead of internalizing negative stereotypes. And the California Youth Legislature would also add an additional level of positive youth development, and that would include a mentorship relationship with legislators and young people. We're in support of SB 516, and the most important reason for that is that this bill includes specific language that encourages the inclusion of traditionally marginalized youth, such as those who've been homeless or those who've been affiliated with a variety of systems, such as juvenile justice, foster care, and mental health. Including these youth in this bill takes it to the next level of empowering young people who are rarely asked to sit at the table where decisions that are likely to impact their lives are made. This bill will not only bring them to the table, but amplify their voices so that they're heard at the highest levels of government. This is not a duplicative program of any other existing program, and if the funds were to be diverted or dedicated to an already existing or similar program, we would be opposed to the bill for several reasons. Because the California Youth Legislature is designed to provide policymakers with direct feedback from young people on issues affecting youth when it's likely to impact their lives. Members of a youth legislature would not only learn about the legislative process, but this bill has been specifically designed to allow them to impact the process. It has been designed to focus their energy and attention to youth-specific issues, not all of the global California issues, and its purpose is to advise the governor and the legislature on the key issues affecting the interests, needs, and conditions of disconnected youth throughout California. Their participation will provide keen insight to many of the issues that we face in their day-to-day lives and recognize the significant number of California's youth who live disadvantaged lives. With that, I would like to thank you for your time today and encourage you to support this bill in its current status, which would allow the youth of California who traditionally go unnoticed and overlooked the chances to have their voice heard. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Are there any other supporters? I'd like to call for supporters. Anybody like to testify in support? And I see none. How about opposed? Welcome. Have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members, and with apologies to Senator, who's, I must say, been very accommodating, and we've enjoyed working with his staff very much, and we hope that we can come to some resolution. Basically, the YMCA's position is that we are opposed to this legislation for one reason and one reason only. That is that we feel that this piece of legislation will raise a tremendous amount of money, yet only fund 120 kids to go through a model legislature program. The YMCA has a 61-year record of providing a model legislature for thousands of children, and we do so very economically. We have a very diverse population attending, and for the kind of money that this bill raises, we can actually scholarship hundreds and hundreds of kids to participate. And what we're talking to Senator about is the possibility of doing his program as he envisions it, but with a kind of a more comprehensive format, such as the YMCA model legislature. And I have with me a young man who now works here in the Capitol, who is a former delegate, Jeff Baker, who is a former state senator and who would like to just tell you very briefly about his experience in the model legislative program.
Way too young to be a state senator. No.
Can I ask the question, does the youth legislature have to deal with the governor?
Yes.
Okay, they have a governor too. All right.
It's a full model state government program. We have a court system. There's the governor's office with a cabinet. You have legislature and everything. I personally was in the legislative side of the program for 2 years. It was an amazing experience. I was a committee chair at one point in the Senate, and I was a bill sponsor in the Assembly. It was a great program. If I hadn't had that experience, I probably would not be interning in the Capitol at this point. It's a great program. I think that if we fold this proposal, which I think is a wonderful proposal, I think that the idea of having those youth-specific issues is really a great idea and a really great way to bring those issues to the forefront. And I think that having this program folded into the current structure and administrative procedures of the YMCA would be wonderful. They do an amazing job.
Thank you. Other opponents? Anybody else? Questions? Senator, Assemblywoman Saldana would like to ask a question.
I'm curious. I'm reading some of the comments, and I see that your proposal will focus the attention of the participants on issues affecting young people. And do you feel that the YMCA, the current program, is not sufficiently doing that currently, that there needs to be more focus on those topics?
Well, that's part of the discussion we're having, Ms. Saldana, with the YMCA now, and I hope that we can get some amendments before we go to Rev and Tax next week. If we can bring them together, I think that would be a good thing. We did this bill, and then the YMCA came in opposed after it got out of the Senate, so we hadn't got comments from them until recently. My view was I was aware of the YMCA. I think they're different programs, but I do think they're complementary, and there may be an ability to merge them. So that language was put in prior to them coming to me and saying they'd like to do it. I knew that the YMCA program was there. I do think it's a little different, at least in my mind's eye. That's why the language is there, because like the California Senior Legislature, I imagine this is actually coming and making recommendations to the legislature on bills in front of us as they pertain to youth. So we thought of it more as not just, theirs is a 9-month program that involves very intensive immersion, as the witness said, on a various different levels. The legislature is more a continuing institution, basically housed here in the legislature, just like the senior legislature. But having said that, I think there's a possibility that we could merge them both. I don't see them as being competitive.
So you're anticipating amendments before it goes to Rev and Tax?
I'm hoping that they will supply me with amendments and we can have a discussion about that before Rev and Tax.
And since I also serve on Rev and Tax, then I think I will abstain today and wait to see it when it comes to that committee with the changes that are being discussed.
Appreciate that.
Okay.
I will look forward to your support at some point.
All right, thank you.
Got 3 members of Rev and Tax here. So, Mr. Hall, Assemblymember Hall has a question for you.
Thank you. It's good to see you, Senator. I, too, would like to express my concern and my support of amendments with the YMCA. I know they're doing an outstanding job and have been doing an outstanding job for some 60 years in this area. I've had an opportunity to work with many of the leaders who have gone and grown up through that program. Some today are representatives on school boards, on city councils, and so I am very much willing to support the bill with the understanding that you will be working with the YMCA.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Other questions, comments? Assemblymember Portantino has a question.
Yeah, I have actually been participating in the Youth and Government program with the YMCA. At their bill hearing night for probably about 5 or 6 times, where the local Y do a dress rehearsal before they come up here. My daughter was in the program the last 2 years as well, and it's a terrific program. And as was pointed out, I believe Dario Fromer was the governor when he went through the program, and
look at how he turned out.
Yeah. This year's governor was actually from my daughter's high school as well, so that is a terrific program with both the program that they do here, the Camp Roberts components that they do. They not only have the legislature, but they also have a whole media department that covers the legislature. They do daily programs. They teach those kids who want to be reporters to be part of. So it is a terrific program. So I do have some reservations about the duplicative nature and causes me pause, because that program has been, is so successful. I'm a little bit torn because one of the first things I did, and I was going to mention it on the last bill when I was on the city council, is I created a youth council, which then led, after I'm gone, they actually led the fight against the underage tobacco sales this year and participated in a sting and have created a local tobacco ordinance. So, you know, anything that involves kids in the government process is great, but I do have some concerns about the necessity of two programs when we have such a great statewide program in place. So that's my concern.
Okay. Other comments? Mr. Berryhill.
Yeah.
Councilman Berryhill.
You know, we certainly support the kids, but I certainly have some concerns for the reasons above. I'm not going to be able to support this today, Assembly member or Senator, excuse me. But
I'm not offended.
But having said that, let's see what happens with this bill when it gets to the floor, and see if we can't get to a point where we can all hopefully agree that this is a good thing. Okay.
Okay. I appreciate any of your comments or input.
You bet. Thanks.
Okay, other comments? Do you have closing remarks?
No, we will hope you will support it so we can keep moving it. I think whatever we do to help empower more young people in the process is a good thing, so we'll endeavor to work with the YMCA and the other groups to get a product everybody can support.
Okay.
I move the bill.
There's a motion, a second for the bill. And if there's no other questions, I'll call the roll.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Not vote. Saldana not voting. Berryhill?
No.
Berryhill, no. Hall?
Yeah.
Hall, aye. Logue? No. Logue, no. Portantino? Portantino not voting. Swanson?
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. 3-2. We need one more.
On call.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Senator, let's see. We'll go to item 9, SB 702.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Daycare centers.
SB 702 is a result of there ought to be a law contest that I and others amongst us do every year, and it's a sad story that hopefully we can, by enacting this, we can make sure it doesn't happen again. A constituent came to me, and obviously for purposes of privacy would like to remain anonymous, but as a young couple, mom took her 5-year-old to her gym to work out, and while she was working out, the other 5-year-old girl who was in the child care was abused by an employee who turned out was hired illegally. So, or turned out was the hiring was not illegal, but wasn't illegal. So what this bill would do is require healthcare facilities, health clubs, grocery stores, and other businesses that provide health care but are not licensed under California law to take each employee and have them registered on the Trust Line Registry, making sure that they don't have any prior convictions. That would cost about $125, and we believe will lead to a situation where these kind of incidents, which we are told anecdotally happen in California, not just this isolated incident, will be highly unlikely. We are in discussions with some of the groups who have concerns, and there may be other ways to mitigate this. For instance, 24-Hour Fitness, it's my understanding, does background checks now that only cost $25. So there's that discussion. In addition, stores like IKEA do, I think, a very good job of making sure that these child care facilities are open to the public so that something like this would be less likely to happen physically. So that's the reason for the bill. We
Move the bill.
have no opposition at this time, and I would appreciate the motion and turn it over to my witnesses for any
Motion
comments.
Second for approval of the bill. Witnesses in support, please.
Hi, Danielle Millay, Child Abuse Prevention Center, in support of this legislation. We believe it's really important to be screening all staff who are working in direct contact with children. All other child care facilities do already require background checks and fingerprinting. We don't just say this in terms of child care facilities, but our own agency practices as well. As a nonprofit, whether or not staff work in direct contact with children, we do fingerprint and screen all of our own staff, so we do this as well. We believe it's very important to maintain the same standards and safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Witnesses support, please.
Denita Stromgren with the California Child Care Research and Referral Network for the administering agency of Trust Line, and we're in support of the newly amended bill.
Okay. Other witnesses support? Opposition? Is there opposition to the bill? Questions of the author by members?
Sure.
Assemblymember Logue.
Yeah, what do you foresee, any kind of burden of cost, additional cost in enforcing this? Also, especially with the furlough issues rising in our budget, do you see this as something that's going to be doable?
Yes, because it really doesn't require any oversight other than that the employer and the employee will agree to be registered in the trust line. So you actually avoid costs in the future, we think, both in terms of prosecution when the case comes up, because you're eliminating the possibility or making harder that it would happen, and also liability for the employer.
Thank you.
Move the bill.
A motion second to approve the bill. Oh, yeah, there's already a motion.
It's much nicer to have you fight over a bill.
I forgot. I've been working so hard.
That's highly unusual.
I know.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Aye. Saldana, aye. Berryhill?
Aye.
Berryhill, aye. Hall? Hall, aye. Logue?
Aye.
Logue, aye. Portantino?
Aye.
Portantino, aye. Swanson? Swanson, aye. The bill is out.
Bill's out, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Portantino.
question before the senator goes on the other bill. I was talking to the YMCA, and I think there's belief that you're going to come to a agreement, and I know you're going to work with them. And obviously, it's got to go to Rev and Tax, but with the understanding that you're going to work with the Y, and they seem comfortable with that arrangement. If I would be prepared to vote on his prior bill if you want to lift the call.
On item 7.
He's one vote.
Call on item 7.
If that's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that's fine.
Saldana? Not voting. Portantino?
With the understanding he's going to work it out with the Y, I'll give him an aye.
Thank you, Mr.
Portantino, aye. The bill is out.
Bill's out, Senator.
Thank you all.
Senator Liu, welcome. Madam Chair. And Senator has SB 118 and SB 597. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SB 118. Mr. Chair, members, I ask for your support in SB 118. This bill ensures that social workers collect necessary data regarding a child's incarcerated parent in a consistent data entry field in the Child Welfare Database. This is a simple and much-needed bipartisan bill with no opposition. Over the last...
Move the bill.
Motion second for the approval of the bill.
Would you like me to finish?
You may.
No.
Got a motion for it.
Thank you. Is it
bipartisan? Yeah.
That's right. I ask for your support.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you for your principal co-author.
Thank you. Witnesses in favor?
Bridget Ortega, and I'm a criminal justice practitioner and researcher, asking for your aye vote.
Charlene Simmons, retired acting director, California Research Bureau. I have years of looking at this issue, and we really need this information. Thank you.
Other supporters, please.
Mary Wyberg with the California Commission on the Status of Women in Strong Support.
Thank you.
Frank Mecca with the County Welfare Directors Association in support.
Thank you. Is there opposition? I see none in the room. Senator, would you like to close?
Oh, I just asked for your support for the bill. Thank you. Question,
Senator,
yes.
Assemblywoman Saldana has
a question?
Yeah, is there research that shows that recidivism declines when these reunifications are successful, that parents who are able to reestablish family ties, that the recidivism rate drops off in those situations?
I don't know if there's data to that issue.
There certainly is data that shows that parental ties are very important in terms of recidivism, so that the more an incarcerated person is connected with their family, both while they're incarcerated and then after, makes a big difference in terms of recidivism.
Mm-hmm.
It decreases.
Okay, that's what I was looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman?
Assemblymember Logue?
I was just wondering why this didn't go on consent.
Thank you. I don't know. No one told me.
Possibly at opposition somewhere.
There was?
Or not voting at some point.
Okay. Thank you.
And we have a motion for this
We do.
legislation. And if there's no questions, we'll call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Aye. Saldana, aye. Berryhill?
Aye.
Berryhill, aye. Hall? Logue? Logue, aye. Portantino?
Aye.
Portantino, aye. Swanson?
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. Bill's out 6-0.
Senator, that
Thank you
bill's
very
out.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a great bill.
Item number 8.
We go to item 8. This is SB 597 by our senator, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. In 2008, Congress
A
passed.
motion to move the bill?
Oh, goodness.
Getting a lot of early motions,
You don't.
Senator.
Wow.
We have a motion to approve this bill.
I want to hear it.
Thank you. Would you like to hear the presentation?
Go right ahead.
Okay. Congress passed the Fostering Connections to Success and Increasing Adoptions Act of 2008, and SB 597 conformed state law to several provisions of the new federal act so that California's children and families can benefit from new national opportunities. So that the bill simply allows California to claim a federal share of cost if and when the state elects to make reasonable payments to foster care providers who arrange transportation for foster youth to continue to attend schools in his or old schools. It requires the Department of DSS, Department of Social Services, to develop a plan for ongoing oversight of health care services for all children in foster care, and it requires DSS and licensed adoption agencies to provide information about federal adoption tax credits to any person considering the adoption of a foster child. I'm happy to be working with the administration on this bill. They've asked the bill reflect the minimum necessary to bring California into conformity with the new federal law. The bill adds no new cost to either department or foster care providers. And with that in mind, I can assure the California Alliance of Child and Family Services that the bill does not give DSS the authority to impose transportation requirements on providers, and it does not require providers to provide transportation. However, the amendment that the Alliance has suggested does require DSS to expend resources it doesn't have, so I must decline to take that amendment. There is no opposition to the bill, and there's support from the Judicial Council, the State Bar, and others, and I ask for your support.
Okay. Any questions? And we'll ask for witnesses in favor. Okay. I see none. How about opposed? Any opposed? None? Any close? No questions?
I ask for your support. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second on this bill,
Thank you.
so we'll call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Aye. Saldana, aye. Berryhill?
Aye.
Berryhill, aye. Hall? Logue?
Aye.
Logue, aye. Portantino?
Aye.
Portantino, aye. Swanson?
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. Bill.
Thank you very much, members.
We'll go next to Senator Maldonado. He's here. And he has item 3 and item 4. First item is SB 141, and this relates to in-home support services. And Senator, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I'm accepting the committee's amendments to SB 141, which is in IHSS.
Thank you, Senator.
And IHSS is a program that I support and I believe in. It protects the elderly, the disabled, obviously, and the vulnerable, allowing them to stay in the comfort of their homes and avoid being institutionalized. Lately, state and county resources for oversight are not matching the program's rapid growth. Because of this, there's a lack of accountability, I believe, in the system. California taxpayers, California tax dollars are being invested into this program, and we need to do our best to tighten up and professionalize the system. Mr. Chair, SB 141 requires that the IHSS timesheet contain a legal certification to be signed by the provider and the recipient. And here's the important words. For anyone who willfully and knowingly provides false information would be subject to a civil penalty in the minimum amount of $500 and a maximum amount of $1,000. I'd ask for an aye vote, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Witness support?
Karen Kiesler on behalf of the United Domestic Workers of America. We are in support of the bill. We know that the state of Massachusetts did something very similar a number of years ago on the timesheet for their home care program. They viewed that as being successful. We think this is a reasonable step. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Others in support?
Tamara Raspberry, representing Service Employees International Union, in support.
Others?
Robert Harris on behalf of California Union of United Home Care Workers, representing the home care workers in the 25 rural California counties, and we're in support of this bill.
Thank you. Others in support, please. Any others? How about opposed? This is, the author has accepted the recommended amendments.
That is correct.
Motion to move the bill.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the bill with the amendments, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Deborah Doctor from Disability Rights California. I'd just like to say that with the author taking the amendments, we will remove our opposition to the bill.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So we'll record that Disability Rights California is now taking away their opposition to the bill with the amendments. And we have a motion to approve with the amendments. And is there any questions of the author by members? Yes. Saldana?
I'm curious, Mr. Maldonado, have you ever had family members requiring IHSS care?
Actually, I have. And I've actually contacted a lot of people that have had in-home care services, and I asked a lot about the timesheet, and I think it's a small step forward that'll bring more accountability to the program.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have, like you, I've been in that situation with my grandmother.
My grandmother and my grandfather both.
And it is a very difficult situation at times, because I don't know how the county where you reside or where your grandparents resided manages this, and I see that San Diego County is supporting this. But it concerns me that we are adding penalties, and I appreciate you taking the amendments. It inclines me more to be supportive of this. I know that the county of San Diego has concerns about the increasing costs, and we have been hearing a lot of what I think is exaggerated concerns over the increase in costs of IHSS, because the fact is we have an increasing population of people at an age that they're going to require more of this care. So I just want to go on record as saying that I don't think that the increasing costs associated with that is directly or in any way related to fraud or intentional fraud. I think it's more that there are more people, like our grandparents, that require this in a baby boomer generation, and the population of 80-year-olds and over is going to be doubling in the next decade. And so I'll be supportive of anything that goes to training. I know that there are other bills that Assemblymember Cook has a bill that I'm a co-author on to look at training of IHSS providers. But I just did want to make it clear, because I have been in that situation, and I know how difficult it is at times to manage when you have multiple people coming in throughout the day. And so my experience with them is that they are doing very important and essential work for families, and I don't want anything that is going to add on the burden to people that are really taking on considerable burden and doing jobs that very few people are willing to do. So if that is your goal, to help ensure that people are aware of this, and do you think that really recovering that amount of money will be a deterrent?
Well, I think the main goal is to keep the program moving forward. I like the program a lot. I happen to be Hispanic, and in my culture, we don't warehouse our family. We take care of our family members at home. And it's an important program that I really, really like. However, I do believe that there are some folks that are acting in bad faith and are giving the whole program a black eye. I really believe that I'm not asking much of someone to sign a timesheet under a circumstance that they perform the hours and the duties, and to have also the recipient sign that same time card. I think it's a minor step to move accountability and transparency into a program that I think is great.
And the signatures are currently required, are they not? Okay.
Right, that's correct.
And in the case of a person with severe disabilities, then another family member is allowed to sign on their behalf?
That is correct.
Supervising that? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Second the motion. Mr. Bearhill seconds. One of the things I wanted to say about this is I think with the amendments, I think a common sense way of handling this issue, because what we're essentially doing is we're putting a civil penalty attached to any kind of criminal penalty. So it does serve as a deterrent, and probably will help us reduce the amount of problems in the IHSS program. But I wanted to say that all the studies we've seen, the newspaper accounts and grand jury reports, the issue of IHS fraud, they are largely anecdotal and focus on things like allegations and investigations, and not empirical evidence that has been on actual fraud. Fraud is a word that is a criminal law, and I think some people have in the past described overpayments, other kinds of mistakes as fraud, and I think we have to be very careful about distinguishing between mistakes, overpayments, and then fraud. One statistics I saw in one report said that 25% of the IHSS program had fraud. Well, that's ridiculous. That's not based on fact, and we tried to find out where that came from, and it came from, it was something that somebody started saying and it kept being repeated, right? And so it kind of like turned into it. But I think when we look at fraud, we want to keep fraud from happening. So having a deterrent, which is the goal of this bill, is the correct, in my opinion, way of dealing with the issue of any kind of fraud and actually improving the process, because people will look at that and they'll say, well, I better make sure I'm signing something that's actually true, or else I'm going to be subject to this penalty that Senator Maldonado put in the bill. So I think it's actually a good deterrent and should help any kind of problems. I wanted to point out that Assemblywoman Lowenthal, with her AB 682, would require reporting on the numbers of fraud convictions. So we're actually going to be gathering statistically with AB 682 some information about the issue of fraud in the IHSS program. And I think we'll act on true statistics and get the information and find out what we can do to improve our situation with IHSS fraud. So that's why I strongly support this bill. I think it's a good package for our IHSS program. It makes it a substantial improvement of the issue of deterrence. So I support this bill. We have a motion and a second on the bill. So if there's no other questions, we'll call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Aye. Saldana, aye. Berryhill? Aye. Berryhill, aye. Hall? Logue? Aye. Logue, aye. Portantino? Aye. Portantino, aye. Swanson?
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. The bill is out 6-0.
Senator Maldonado, you have another one that's numerically the next one. AB,
Thank you.
SB 142.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And SB 142 is not a companion, but it is two bills that I introduced on IHSS the same day. First of all, I'd like to accept the committee's amendments. There's two sets. The amendments to have the two sets list given to the provider, and those will be accepted. 142, Mr. Chair, will require the Department of Social Services, along with the appropriate stakeholders, to advise a method ensuring that IHSS provider gets a list of approved duties before working for the IHSS recipient. This process is to be implemented by December 31st of 2011. IHSS providers are not always given a list of tasks to complete, and this means that the recipient may not be receiving the care that was permitted for them as a social worker to do. Unfortunately, this also means that the taxpayers are paying providers for completing lists of tasks that the taxpayers have not paid for. So I think it's another small step. It's an incremental step to helping a good program that I hope continues to stay in place.
Other supporters?
Karen Kiesler with the United Domestic Workers, and we are in support of the bill. As the Senator said, sometimes workers find themselves in the unfortunate position of providing uncompensated care because they don't have a list of the tasks that have been approved by the social workers and the whole range of tasks that could be approved by the social worker. We think that this will be a relatively simple process for stakeholders in the state to agree to. The state currently has a form called the SOC 426, which is the simple list of the tasks that could be approved approved and have been approved specifically for each consumer. That information does not contain, or that form does not contain any of the private financial information like the Social Security that's on the notice of action. So this NOAA Lite, as we would call it, that does not have any of the financial information private to the consumer, we think is valuable to be shared with the consumer and with the worker, and we ask for your aye vote.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and second on the bill.
Tamara Raspberry, Service Employees International Union, and I concur with everything that Ms. Kiesler said. This is something we've been working on for a long time, bringing up this issue. We had SB 945 introduced by Senator Padilla in 2006, I believe, which would have accomplished something similar. So we look forward to working with the Senator on this task force and ensure that private consumer information is protected. Thank you.
Other supporters?
Robert Harris, on behalf of California United Home Care Workers, in support of the bill.
Other supporters, please. Seeing no more opponents.
Right here. Sorry. Deborah Doctor from Disability Rights California. Although we do think that the amendments have gone in the right direction, we're not going to remove our opposition because we think that the underlying premise is in opposition to the underlying premise of IHSS, where the consumer is the employer for the purpose of hiring, firing, and directing. And if you look at the notice of action that a consumer gets, it describes the tasks on there for the purpose of assessing their hours. It's not a daily job description. In fact, it doesn't say what the tasks are supposed to be every day because, I mean, just sort of common sense, there are some tasks that aren't done every day. They're done once a week, perhaps, or once every 2 weeks. So using something, the hourly task guidelines, which were meant for one purpose, to award hours, and converting those into use as a daily task list goes against how they were designed, and it goes against the relationship between the employer and the employee. I think it's kind of notable that the push for this doesn't come from consumers. There aren't consumers flocking here to say, we aren't getting what we need, and so we need to have this done. And that's not where this is coming from. So for those reasons, because we do represent the consumers on this, people with disabilities, we do continue to oppose the bill. Thank you.
Okay. Other comments? Other opponents? Questions from committee? We have a motion, correct? We have a motion on the floor. Senator, would you like to close?
I'd ask for an aye vote, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And this motion is for do pass as amended with the committee amendments, correct? Yes.
Do pass
Okay.
amended, yes.
Okay, thank you. We will call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Saldana not voting. Berryhill?
Aye.
Berryhill, aye. Hall? Logue? Logue, aye. Portantino?
Aye.
Portantino, aye. Swanson?
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. The bill is out. 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
You're welcome. And Senator Yee's here, item 12. Senator, welcome. And he has SB 791. It's item 12.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members. This is a rather straightforward bill. 791 would ensure that in-home supported services provider are eligible for COBRA benefits, also receive the federal subsidy as provided by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009. What this bill will do is clarify the existing law to state the entity administering COBRA health benefit for IHSS providers shall be the same entity responsible for implementing the subsidy under the Reinvestment Act, and believe that this is needed to codify existing law, and that's all it does. And urge an aye vote.
Thank you, Senator. Witness in support, please.
Karen Kiesler, United Domestic Workers of America. We are the sponsor of the bill, and I'll go right to the question that was raised in the committee analysis about why the bill is needed. The Department of Social Services has released 2 all-county letters providing guidance to the counties and the public authorities about compliance with ARA and the subsidy for COBRA for IHSS workers, and we agree with both of those letters. We've called a number of the counties and public authorities to get a sense about how many IHSS workers currently apply for COBRA benefits. In Los Angeles, for example, it's about 50 a month. That number could grow. But as the department was putting together the all-county letters, it's our understanding that public authorities in particular had pushed back, saying that there was no specific statute that provided the foundation for the state to release those all-county letters. And if those all-county letters were to be contested, that would be viewed as an underground regulation. So this is just very straightforward. It's clearly the public authorities that negotiate with the unions to provide health benefits pursuant to memorandums of understanding, and they or their health carrier would be responsible for compliance with the COBRA subsidy. We believe this just codifies exactly the current practice, and we ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tamara Raspberry, Service Employees International Union, in support.
Robert Harris on behalf of True in support. And it's important to note that in some cases a health carrier happens to be a union trust, so this says the union trust is responsible for doing it in those cases. We're just trying to codify the law so there's no confusion and people get what they deserve.
I move the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Motion is second to approve the bill. And other supporters, please. Opponents? Seeing none. Senator, would you like to close?
Just to thank your committee for good work on this, and thank for the advocates for bringing this issue to my attention.
Thank you, Senator. We have no questions, so we'll call the roll, please.
Bell.
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana. Saldana, aye. Berryhill. Berryhill not voting. Hall. Logue. Logue not voting. Portantino. Portantino, aye. Swanson.
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. The bill is out 4-0.
Thank you very much.
And we're looking for authors to testify. We're looking for 3 senators. Senator Wright, Ashburn, and Leno. He's calling them. Got 3 more. Senator Ashburn, Wright, and Leno. See what's going on with these guys.
Mr. Wright is in public safety presenting, supposed to be wrapping it up. Mr. Leno is in environmental safety, and Ashburn is in a meeting. He should be on his way.
Okay.
That's a few.
Okay.
It's not good enough.
Better get going. I'm going to take a little break. Wait for him. I use the facilities. Okay, we have Senator Ashburn here. Welcome, Senator, for item 10. This is SB 774.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your patience. This is an unusual day in the Capitol.
Yeah, it is.
About people who work in child protective services, but who themselves have backgrounds that would be of concern with respect to the safety and well-being of the children under their supervision. And so in an effort to make sure that children are protected, the bill requires that before hiring a CPS worker, they would undergo a Department of Justice criminal background history. Ms. Chair, I'm familiar with the amendments that you are suggesting. I accept all of those as author's amendments and appreciate everyone's effort and ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Senator. People in support of the bill?
Mr. Chairman, Frank Mecca on behalf of the County Welfare Directors Association. We're in support of the bill, and we also appreciate the staff's assistance with the amendments. The bill it represents best practice and will create consistency across counties, most of whom do some sort of criminal background checking under a statute that is optional, not mandatory. And so we think a consistent statewide approach will be beneficial, and we ask for your support.
Okay, other supporters? Yes, other supporters? Opponents? Okay.
Oh, I thought I had
almost
neutralized you.
All right. Oh, now we find out what's going on. Okay.
Hi, Mr. Chair and members. Tia Orr from the Service Employees International Union. I would first like to apologize for getting the opposition letter into you late. There was confusion in it going to the Public Safety Committee first, and they held the bill off and put it over here, so I apologize for that. However, our concerns are as they were since the inception of the bill, and we've worked with the author's office in trying to solve this problem around the fee that will be attached to the applicant who applies for the position with the county. I think most of you know that counties do some pretty hard work in trying to recruit qualified, educated, young and eager social workers to do this for us. It is very difficult to do so when you have competing agencies like foster family agencies and other companies who pay more and also provide less stress and less caseload and so on and so forth. We feel like this fee will be a deterrent to hiring good and qualified social workers, and we have asked the author, and we'll say it in committee, for the language to stay neutral and just to be quiet about who pays for the fee, and that way everything that's occurring now in the counties, in Los Angeles County, for example, is doing the background checks now. They actually pay for the fee for the background checks. So we're hoping that we can keep the language silent in hopes that if the background checks do occur, that counties can continue to do what they do now.
Okay, other comments from others?
Mr. Chair and members, Valerie Small-Navarro with the American Civil Liberties Union, and we want to thank your staff and the author's staff for working so diligently with us. We still have 2 remaining issues along with the National Employment Law Project, and we will continue to work with the senator and his staff. But just to flag the issues, one is a process question. Some counties now make offers of employment conditional on a background check. So they wait for the whole process to get it to the very end, and they make a conditional offer. The bill as drafted, I think, inadvertently would not allow that. You have to actually do it the other way around. So I think that's sort of a technical issue that hopefully we can work through. The second issue is a little more substantive, and that is in the section that itemizes all the list of grounds that people have to go through and look to make sure that the individual, whether the offense that was committed is related to the job they're performing, et cetera, et cetera. And under current Title VII federal case law, you really need to have 2 of these conditions be in the mandatory section versus in the sort of discretionary section. And so we're urging to push those 2 sections up into the mandatory section. But we'll continue working with the staff, and we really appreciate all the work that's gone into this.
This bill is going to the Public Safety Committee next, Senator. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, Mr. Chair, and the suggestions and concerns expressed here are very reasonable, and we will work with those who have concerns.
Okay. Other questions? Mr. Swanson, Assembly member.
Senator, my problem is that it's the fees seem like an employment tax, and I don't know, so I can't support the bill, with the fee. Not sure how you feel in response to the statements that have been made, whether or not you're prepared for the bill to go neutral on that question and let best practices.
Well, let me give you an example. Members of the bar who are attorneys and employed by public agencies, in some instances their employer pays their bar dues. In other instances, the attorneys pay their own bar dues. Those are locally negotiated, and with the language that we have discussed here with SEIU, it would be discretionary. It would be a decision made at the local jurisdiction with respect to. So I don't see it in terms, in the same way that you do, as a barrier. This is simply anyway. It would be the measure would be silent with respect to who pays, and that would be a locally determined item.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Just to comment that the measure currently, as I know, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, isn't quiet on that language. It does state that the applicant may pay. I think different from the example with the bars, we're looking at folks that are graduating from college with a master's degree with mounds of debt that are going to get paid about $30,000 a year when they do get hired. The money that they're going to make is not going to be substantial. They're mainly getting into this job because they love the field of work. So I think there is a little bit of difference there, and the language as of now, from what I know, is not silent. And so I think counties would lean towards charging the applicant rather than taking it themselves if we don't make the language silent. So that's my fear.
Okay.
In my answer, I was expressing a willingness to take your amendment because it seems reasonable to me, and we would do that at the next committee. If that helps with the concern.
Is that answer the question on the fee issue? So the amendment is going to be discussed and crafted for the Public Safety Committee.
Okay. I mean, if the amendments, if you're willing to take the amendment, I think we would come neutral on the bill. I can concur with my locals and make sure that's okay with them. But in our prior discussions, that was our main objective, is to make sure that the language was silent in that.
Okay. Other questions?
Oh, sure.
I appreciate that, Senator. I watch the bill as it goes forward with that amendment as it approaches the floor. But I certainly feel that expression is a good faith expression.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Member Saldana.
How many other positions are doing a background check currently?
Well, like a child care provider would have to be they could do a fingerprinting and.
But it's not a full DOJ.
Well, they run the fingerprints.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the same background check.
Teachers,
The
staff.
child care. I think they told me it was about $90 to run to pay a fee to run the fingerprinting.
Yeah, $70 to $90.
For a child care provider.
Right.
So anybody that does child care, if you want to go to the child care center, you have to go in and get your fingerprints, and they run it.
Or any school employee, including custodians, people who work in food service. All school employees are subject to this same criminal background check, again, to protect people who cannot protect themselves.
And the cost has increased to, I see here, $80. That's an estimate.
It's in the $70 to $90 range, which again would be, not to be argumentative, but with respect to bar dues, again, and the earning potential of each of these positions, it's a relatively modest amount to assure that our children, that's who we're talking about here, I mean, kids from abused, neglected circumstances under the care of CPS workers, my gosh, let's make sure those people don't have problems in their past that are a threat or a risk to the kids.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. When I taught, I would go through this, and different districts, I understood that was a requirement of teaching, but there was also an understanding of a certain salary that I think may be higher than what many of these social workers are anticipating. And so I just look at it as something that it just troubles me. I know that people right now are in economically very tough times, and if the difference between getting a job and not being able to afford something like this is a deterrent to people, I just want some way that could be managed. But it sounds like you're willing to continue to work on that.
Now, if you go back to the number 9 on our agenda, Senator Liu's bill, where they were talking about child care providers in like 24-hour fitness, or you know, the supermarkets that are now doing they're opening up these child care centers in the supermarkets or the fitness places and so forth. She has in her bill the fingerprinting and background checks are required now for those what they call ancillary child care centers, and they have to pay a fee of if you notice in the staff report there, it's I think it was about $100 some. No, that was Senator Liu's bill, which is the one, or Senator DeSaulniers' bill. Excuse me. Yeah, correct. Senator DeSaulniers' bill, and it requires the background check for those, and you know, those people that work in those child care centers.
And what is the difference between the trust line background check and what is being referred to here?
Well, the trust line background check is the one that's set up for babysitters and, you know, child care providers. Mm-hmm. And it's the only one accepted, I think, by the state government in terms of checking people for that service. That you say you want to hire somebody in your house, you have the fingerprinting and the background checks done by this trust line. Costs $100 and some. You get the person's fingerprinted.
And
and the trust line runs the fingerprints on the criminal systems, et cetera. So that's the way it works.
So it's a private company that does an even more. But this was something when we discussed it earlier that a business pay for is not an individual. Isn't that correct? That the company that provides the care pays for that check, not the individual who's working.
I've been told that it's like what you said. Some companies do, but some companies don't. My understanding is that some cases people, if they're going to work for a school or as a child care provider or a private child care provider, they have to do 2 separate fingerprintings, which is something we have to deal with as a legislature. It doesn't make any sense to do 2 separate fingerprintings for somebody trying to get the same job. If somebody's going around looking for a job, and each time they apply for a job, they have to get fingerprinting, that's kind of crazy. So that's something to clear up at some point.
Mr. Chair,
anyway, this is a typical requirement for taking any time you work with kids. You know.
Mm-hmm. With your permission, we will inventory exactly what occurs, who does it, what it costs for each of these categories already in law, and those which are proposed here, and I'll supply that to the committee right away. And we'll certainly be ready by public safety.
Okay. Any other questions,
right,
members?
We'll do that.
We have no motion on the floor yet. There's a motion now to approve the bill, and I'll second the bill. I'll second the motion with the amendments, and with the understanding that Senator is going to work with the assembly members that are concerned about this between now and the public safety
and we'll be
committee hearing. Okay. Further questions by members? Want to call the roll, please?
Did he close?
No, I think he did. Did you want to add any comments?
No.
Okay.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Not voting. Berryhill? Hall? Logue? Logue, aye. Portantino?
With the understanding of the chair, aye.
Portantino, aye. Swanson?
Not voting at this time.
Swanson not voting. Bill's on call, 3 to 0.
Bill's on call.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Mr. Chair and Assembly members.
Thank you. Okay. We have Senator Reitz here. Welcome, Senator. Senator Reitz has number 5 on the agenda, SB 44. This is Very important. It's related to Children's Services for High-Risk Children. And welcome, Senator. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. This is, in this form, a study bill. Concern that we have is that we have child care and development programs for kids who, particularly in foster care, who are themselves particularly disadvantaged. In the Senate, it was moved down. Again, what we were talking about is changing the priority of how kids access the system. And before you now is a study in order to do that. We're looking at the amendments on page 3 of the analysis that, without objection, I'll accept as author's amendments, Mr. Chair, and I have witnesses here in support.
There's a motion and second to approve the bill as amended. We have witnesses in support, and I'd like to welcome them to our committee.
I'm Al Assegai for the Los Angeles County Education Foundation, and our first witness is Terry Ogawa with the foundation.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Terry Ogawa, and I sit on the board of directors for the Los Angeles County Education Foundation, and we are the sponsor of SB 244. LACIF, which is how it's known, is a nonprofit organization that was founded to support programs and services for disadvantaged youth and youth with special needs. We focus on the most vulnerable of our children, specifically those in probation camps and in the foster care system. SB 244 is about making an investment early in the lives of children whose parents are homeless, on probation, or in a correctional facility, children in a foster care system, children who have recently been adopted or are in relative care. Research has shown that children who fall into these groups face greater risks of educational failure and increased likelihood of dependence on our social service system. In California, we have a subsidized child care system in very high demand, with hundreds of thousands of people on waiting lists and not enough resources to serve every child. Oftentimes, children who could benefit the most never receive any early childhood or any child development services. SB 244 would require a study by the Department of Education on the feasibility of providing priority enrollment for subsidies in high-quality child care and development programs. Our subsidized child care system already grants priority enrollment for neglected and abused children. This study will examine the impact of expanding the priority list to include income-eligible children under the age of 5 who may already be on the waiting list but are not considered neglected or abused and thus are not priorities for service. Given our scarce state resources, we believe priority enrollment will allow the state to make an early investment in the lives of young children who would otherwise end up incurring greater costs in the future. Good quality child care and education is the backbone to the economic development of our cities and states, the vitality and safety of our neighborhoods, and the strength of our public schools. So I hope you will support our efforts to serve our most vulnerable children. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Khadija Alam on behalf of the Advancement Project. We are a civil rights organization, and in supporting of SB 244, we're hopeful that ultimately priority enrollment will be given to neglected and abused children, majority of whom are children of color. These children often need extra help in getting ready to be successful in kindergarten and beyond. We believe by giving them priority in the state-subsidized child care and preschool programs, will fulfill this need. We ask for your support.
Others support? Other supporters, please? Welcome.
Themia Jemias with the LA County Office of Education. We are co-sponsor of the bill and we are in support.
Thank you. Opponents? Any opponents? And seeing none, Senator, do you have any concluding remarks?
The conclusion, Mr. Chair, members, foster children in our system are probably some people who get the hardest road to hoe. At the end of the system, they turn 18 and we kick them out. You know, I'd submit to you that no child at 18 is ready to go and become emancipated at that point. And in the early years, when you have issues of child care and other issues, they're often hamstrung because there's no one to advocate on their behalf. The effort here is to try at the early side of their life to try to provide them a leg up in child care and some of the other elements that we offer in society. I would ask for an aye vote.
Okay, other questions? I think seeing how with the fiscal problems of the state, we really need to start looking at what our priorities are, and I believe that for child care system, especially with our TANF funds, which are being cut back. This is a priority. We have to have the foster kids taken care of. So I support this bill. And I'd like to ask if there's a motion. We have a motion.
We have a motion.
And there's a motion as amended. Any other discussion from members? Call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Saldana, aye. Berryhill? Hall? Logue? Not voting. Portantino? Portantino, aye. Swanson?
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. The bill is out 4-0.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. We have one more bill, right?
Yes.
Senator Leno. Item 11. Get Senator here.
And then we have one on call. We need the Ashburn bill on call.
Okay, we'll wait. We have one bill on call. That's item 10.
We have 2 not votings and 2 absent, so. Not voting? Oh, the Ashburn. bill.
Ashburn bill. It's on call. The one where he said he'd do that.
It's going to settle reserves? It's going to, okay. Was Tom Berryhill here when the vote was taken? Tom Berryhill? He wasn't here. Is he coming back? So he needs one more vote?
Open the roll on item 10. It's on call, so we have to officially open the roll and.
Can we open the roll on item 10? And then, but what if these guys want to?
They can add on after the bill is passed.
Okay, we're going to lift the call on item 10. Roll call, please.
Okay, Berryhill. Aye. Berryhill, aye. Hall. The bill has 4 votes to 0. It passes.
Lift the call on item 10.
I just did.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Leave the roll open on the bill?
Well, we're going to
Yeah.
leave the roll open
Oh, yeah.
till we adjourn the meeting. Okay, that bill, item 10, has 4 votes.
4 votes.
Senator Ashburn bill is passed.
Right.
Okay,
Now, do you want to present on Leno's bill?
I'll
We're gonna
present it.
wait.
I can present it.
Huh?
Wait, what?
Yes, you can, 'cause you-
We're going to proceed with item number 11, SB 781. Mr. Leno and the chair will present.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to, on behalf of Senator Leno, present SB 781. This bill aims to protect some of the most vulnerable tenants in the state, and these are seniors living in our residential care facilities for the elderly, or RCFEs in California. And we have highly frail individuals living in these homes, and to move them, transfer trauma and displacement occurs. They typically require protections to keep them from falling victim to financial fraud and other deceptive practices. The state provides little or no oversight to these facilities, leaving our vulnerable residents without necessary supervision. And SB 781 will reduce the number of these unfair evictions and the impact they have on residents by requiring that residents receive, first, a proper notice of their legal rights and responsibilities before being forced to leave their homes, and secondly, an information on alternative housing and care options. The existing law does not require that facilities provide residents with their effective date of eviction, their legal right to file a complaint or appeal the eviction, nor do they have to provide any alternative housing resources. SB 781 rectifies the situation by requiring these provisions be included on the notice to quit. These measures is about consumer awareness and ensuring that elderly residents are better equipped to understand their eviction and avail themselves to their legal remedies affording them under the existing statute. This is something that affects hundreds of elderly in California, and we need to have this. And I just finished, and I asked for your aye vote.
Move the bill. I move the bill.
Bill's been moved and seconded. Witnesses in support.
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Mike Connors of California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform, or CANNER. CANNER is the co-sponsor of SB 781, and you've just been provided an outstanding summary of what the bill does. So I'll keep my comments very brief. It's a basic consumer protection measure to ensure that people are notified of the rights. People, as was mentioned, are very frail. The folks who live in these types of assisted living facilities. And when they move late in life, they're subjected to transfer trauma and other kind of problems. So this is to make sure that they actually know about their rights and have the opportunity to take action if they think that they're being unfairly evicted. We've worked very closely with both the Department of Social Services and the assisted living industry on the language of this bill. There are no opponents to the bill at this point, and we think that this is a good measure and strongly urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Okay.
Deborah Doctor from Disability Rights California. We are very happy to be co-sponsors of the bill. This is an issue that we get faced with a lot. We have lots of these folks who contact our offices, so that's why we urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Jackie McGrath with the Alzheimer's Association, and we're in very strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have other speakers in support. Opponents? Speakers in opposition? None. And, oh, he's here. Senator Leno has arrived, and we'll ask him to close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just coming from a very contentious bill debate across the hall in environmental toxins. So it's a pleasure to be in this very calm room without any opposition. I ask for your aye vote. On behalf of the 168,000 seniors who are living in about 7,800 residential care facilities for the elderly.
Any questions to Senator Leno? And if not, we have a motion. Do we have a motion? Yes, we do. And a motion and second. So if there's no question, we'll call the roll, please.
Bell?
Aye.
Bell, aye. Saldana? Aye. Saldana, aye. Berryhill? Hall? Aye. Hall, aye. Logue? Logue, aye. Portantino?
Aye.
Portantino, aye. Swanson?
Swanson, aye.
Swanson, aye. The bill is out. 6-0.
Okay. Should have spent the afternoon here.
Yeah.
That's the tape. How'd the other bill turn out?
leaving the roll open for you?
Yeah. Okay. It's the right song, but it's automatic. Yeah. I told you on your way. Can I add on quickly because I got to go add on somewhere else. I think I was
Day by day.
Yeah, I think I was up on everything. I didn't miss even ye, right? I didn't miss that. Which one is the SCIU bill? Hello? I'm not fully. I mean, I'm a no on the SCIU. If they call the central. I mean, the, Ashburn.
Ashburn bill is number 10.
Yeah.
That's item 10. No? Or no?
No.
Oh, you're a no? And we got the Lou Bill, Child Welfare Service, 597.
Yes. Okay, very good. Where am I going now? Help? Yeah. 4202, I believe. Thank you, sir. 4202? Okay.
Okay.
We're done.
We don't need other members. Barry Hill?
No, they're not.
Barry Hill. You voted for
Go ahead, he's.
Mr. Bailey, I think Mr. Barry Hill's on there.
He's all covered.
Yeah, he's, oh, except for this one, the Leno bill.
Leno.
He supported it, but I can't vote for him.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, we're, Human Service Committee is adjourned.